Hi, and welcome to the Nature-Based Solutions podcast. I'm very pleased to be here with Laura Albuquerque, Chief Climate Officer at Future Climate. Hi there, Laura. How are you?
Hi, Murray. Nice to be here.
Thanks very much for making the time. We had a little bit of connectivity problem there, but thanks for holding on. It's really great to see you dialing in from Brazil. Great to get to know you as well. So we've had a bit of a chance to get to know one another. But for anybody who's dialing in and has just started listening, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and Future Climate and an introduction to both?
I'm Laura, as you said. Today, I'm the Chief Climate Officer at Future Climate. I've been working on climate change from 20 years now. This year, I complete 20 years being on this job in terms of education, providing technical subsidies, articulating with different stakeholders, and trying to move this challenging agenda forward in an emerging economy with a huge responsibility in terms of nature-based solutions, right? And Future Climate is solutions in terms of climate. We talk about ourselves as a platform because we understand that we can provide full journey in terms of being a one-stop shop when we talk about decarbonization. So the idea is that we, as a business, we are able to give our hands to a company that needs to understand their footprint, that needs to understand their vulnerability and how exposed they are in terms of climate risks, and understanding their decarbonization journey when they need to develop a carbon credit project or where they need to purchase a carbon credit with high quality and high integrity. So when we talk about the full net zero journey and this full path that the companies need to follow, that we need in terms of the Paris Agreement to move forward, we are able to provide the full steps no matter which type of maturity the company is on. If they have already made their decarbonization journey and they are looking for high integrity carbon credits, or even if they need to understand their footprint, or if they need to understand how exposed they are to climate risks, for instance.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. It sounds very comprehensive. You really take somebody from understanding their impact through to mitigating that impact. What type of clients typically do you work with? Presumably that's pretty large organizations.
Yes, we do have pretty large organizations, such as big companies on utilities, but also mining companies. But we do also have some clients that work in, let's say, retail when we talk about the fashion industry, but also the cosmetics industry. So it's a really multi-sectoral, let's say, portfolio that we have. We have small companies, very small business that they understood that they need to do something and they want to have their footprint and be carbon neutral. So we have very small business that like 10 people operating. And we do have clients with maybe 30 different assets distributed in the country, in the northeast and the southeast and in the centerast of the country.
So they would all be entities within Brazil who are then trying to estimate their impact and then mitigate their impact in Brazil.
Yes, they are basically Brazilian companies, but we also have a number of clients that they have their headquarters in another country, but they have huge operations around here. When we talk about the decarbonization, this is our profile. When we talk about the carbon credits, our clients are in Europe and in Middle East.
Right. Okay, well, let's get on to that, and then particularly where the credits come from, because I know from our team we've been doing research about the work that you're doing, and as a nature-based solutions podcast, really interesting to learn about the projects which you're leading in Brazil. First of all, I understand you have a Red Plus project in Amazonas, and really you've been recognized as a leader in forest conservation. Very, very keen to learn how that project came together. And specifically, what work do you do on the ground to conserve that forest?
Yes, Murray, it's really, really important to share with you and with anyone who is listening to us is that at Future Climate, we have today 11 private projects, but specifically in the state of Amazonas, the strategy is quite different. Why I say that? Because one of the things that we really understood for this agenda of conservation and restoration is that small projects are important for learning how to operate, but they are not enough for the size of the challenge to be scalable. So what happened in the Amazonas state and what's happening in other states in Brazil is that the subnational government understood their need to be very near this type of project of conservation. So the Amazonas state specifically, the state has around 63 units of conservation. And the Amazonas made a huge bid asking for carbon project developers to put their proposals together to develop for these 53 conservation units carbon credit projects so that they would have the support of the government with everything that is public related, let's say in terms of all the boundaries that need to be established, or the control in terms of the army and police fiscalization and everything in terms of the lands. And the state, when they made this bid, they were looking for partners, and Future Climate was one of the companies that made proposals. And from the, let's say, from the 53 areas, we are going to develop projects for 12 areas. That it's more than 60% of the areas in terms of hectares. It's 6.5 million hectares.
Wow.
It's the size
Huge.
of Croatia, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. It's huge. It's enormous. And this is something that no developer can do by themselves.
Yeah.
We need the public authority together so that we can put everything that we need in place in terms of the public policy being able to be functional, right? Because the role that we have with the carbon credit is that it can be an environmental payment for the communities that are working around, or the originary people that are over there, and providing the bioeconomy and sustaining everything that happens in the land and conserving the area. So when you ask me, like, what's the challenge and what's the work? Today, the status of these 12 conservation units is in the step of making the consultations with the communities. So it's very in the beginning. The process started 2 years ago, the whole bidding and analysis propositions and so on. And that we estimate that implementation of the project will be like in the second semester and next year on.
Okay, and I'm very, very curious if they're conservation areas already. What's the case for additionality?
They are, in terms of when we talk about the laws in Brazil, they are, let's say, named as conservation units, but they have a huge pressure for deforestation around because of agriculture, because of illegal deforestation for commercializing wood. They have a huge pressure in terms of making any type of other use of the biodiversity that is not conservative.
Okay.
So the community really needs to understand that they can have an alternative. And when we give the alternative in terms of having a revenue for conserving the areas, we can prove good cases, right?
Okay. Well, I know that's great to hear about, and fantastic to hear about the scale of what you're doing into the millions of hectares. This is huge. Coming from a small island, it's always amazing to think about the size of the areas that Brazilians work with. So I understand as well that you've got this joint venture with the Brazilian government in Maranhão with multiple project types, but that's going into jurisdictional REDD+.
Yep.
Is that right? And so that's an area which we haven't really dug into on this podcast. Would you be able to explain at a high level the way that you view jurisdictional REDD+ and the way that it works?
Yes, in a very high level. And also, I think it's important to make a parallel with the Amazonas because
Okay.
each subnational state decided which strategy they would follow and would best fit to the type of areas that they have. So for the Amazonas state, it's maybe 80% of the state is forest. Working within the conservation units was the key strategy for them and to avoid the deforestation. In terms of the Maranhão state, the territory has a huge area of wetlands in the coast, and some of them degraded or not. And another part of the state has a huge area that it's already degraded because of agriculture. So the profile, although they are both in the Amazon biome, they do have some different ways of how the land was being developed, depending on the triggers and the exploitation that was made. So in the state of Maranhão, the idea was that the government really understood all the opportunities in terms of not only conservation but the restoration opportunities as well. So the proposal there is much more linked to how the state can restore the lands and be innovative in terms of having the first blue carbon projects because they have huge areas of wetland around. So there is a strategic work in terms of the different types of projects, completely different from what is going to be made in the state of Amazonas, that is conserving the biome of Amazon. So in Maranhão, the state really wants to understand the different types of projects and choose how they are going to implement each one of them along the 40 years of concession, let's say, in terms of the JV. So when we talk about the jurisdictional, the scale is much more, it's bigger, not in terms of actors, but in terms of the types of projects and removals. It's much bigger than the state of when we have only REDD+ projects. And in terms of innovation, in terms of how the public and the private work together in the lands, it's also another different model. And the idea is that the JV, let's say the company that the private Future Climate and the public, the state of Maranhão, builds together, they are able to build a business together that will develop the project and sell the jurisdictional carbon credits of the state.
Fantastic. Okay. And is that a similar type of client base who are going to buy the credits to the Amazonas projects?
This is a very interesting question in terms of the client. We understand that the type of client can be very similar, but today the appetite for credits related to restoring areas is quite different for conserving areas because of how the market has done wrong, let's say like this, or for the bad cases that we faced in the last years. But both types of credits, they are really challenging because we need to stop deforestation when we talk about REDD+ projects, but we need to restore and stop deforestation in restoration projects. So I think that the challenge just grows.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're up for a challenge. On top of developing these huge and complex projects across these huge areas, you've also developed what you call a premium carbon credit, Beyond Carbon. Could you tell us more about that? What sets it apart and what type of co-benefits come with this credit?
Sure. Yes, we are in the 4th year of operating the project, right? So from the beginning, the baseline was like make the best carbon credit projects possible. So the team is really good. And the approach that you mentioned, the Beyond Carbon approach, is based, let's say, in 4 key drivers, let's say like that. So the first one is high integrity. And how do we prove high integrity? The first topic is that we are really conservative in terms of our baseline in all the projects. So we are really conservative in terms of the baseline, and we establish a very robust governance in our projects. And when I was talking about robust governance, I think it's important to say that we need robust governance in terms of understanding, let's say, all the regulatory status of the land, that is like basics, but also having a robust governance on the ground. And that's where the ground and territorial intelligence works with. So having people that understand the dynamics of the ground, of the communities, and of what's illegal in the region, really having intelligence study on that. So when I talk about high integrity, I really talk about the conservative approach and the robust governance in these two aspects, from the regulatory frameworks and legislation that we need to follow, but also the territorial intelligence inside the projects. And the other three aspects are the biodiversity protection. So we ensure that biodiversity remains resilient in the project. So monitoring the species, everything, cataloging the species, and understanding what was maybe endangered, and that we can do any type of work over there, and trying to avoid types of species that have been captured a lot in the region, and when we established the project, they stopped being captured and they are now being conserved. So this protection in terms of biodiversity. The third one is the use of technology. So really using technology in our favor, making all the huge effort in terms of the monitoring the risk of fire, any type of movements and everything with very high resolution remote sensing technologies. So these type of solutions are key to have the beyond carbon. And finally, the social impact and bioeconomy impact, because the idea is that we help the communities that are in the territory of the projects to understand that they can have revenues from products of the forest. So let's say, for instance, a honey or a specific fruit of the Amazon biome or of the Caatinga biome, depending on the biome that we are, but understanding and sharing the knowledge of building a small business to have revenues using the products in a sustainable production way.
Shifting to a more sustainable local economy, helping people to develop those businesses.
Yes, and we have good cases with Artcraft and Honey, for instance, that are the alternative to the community that use it to put the forest down.
Amazing. So, and if somebody's watching this and they want to learn more about that Artcraft, can you share a link with us?
I can share a link and some pictures with you. So the Artcraft of the forest, it's something that is being sold in the events that we do. It's nothing that it's scalable because it's really for the region and so on, different from scalability of selling overseas, but it's being able to sell its Artcraft and having a revenue that puts food on the plate and do not need to put the forest down. So when we talk about the social impact and bioeconomy, of course, we cannot do any of these alone. So we do have a number of different partners, in special the national research institutes, the local ones that really understand the particularities that we have in each ecosystem. So making these partnerships is really important so that we can foster and speak the language where the project is implemented. So in an overall, when we talk about the premium carbon credit and the beyond carbon, that it's our, let's say, trademark, we have been able to, the clients have valued in terms of pricing of the carbon credit more than the average that we see published. So this is something that we are being recognized about when we sell our carbon credit or our carbon credits, because we can tell and show to the client the high integrity, the social impact, the social and bioeconomy impact, the technology that is used, and the biodiversity protection. So that's
fantastic news that people are willing to pay more for credits, which demonstrate that really, really high integrity. Possibly a sensitive question, but approximately how much more than the average market prices, or the kind of publicly available prices, are you able to achieve? Is it like double the types of prices that we see, or more than that?
You know that everything depends on the reference, but when we look in the average, maybe from late last year for forest conservation projects, they were around like $4 to $5, right? And our deals late last year, they were around $12, $13 the ton of CO2.
Congratulations.
So this is a lot of sweat and work of the team on the ground and the technical team as well. But we are really happy that we are in the year 4 of the company being able to share this type of cases and prove that it's possible. We still need a lot to do in terms of financing, in terms of reducing risk, in terms of appetite, and in terms of the financial institutions understanding how challenging the whole ecosystem of the carbon market is. But we are really positive in terms of seeing the path and the roadway to go forward.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. And whilst I say, wow, of course, I think the credit prices should be way, way higher than that still. They should be $140 per ton, right?
Yes,
So
I hope so.
I think that what you're doing is fantastic. It's showing that these high integrity projects attract higher prices. That should drive the development of a high integrity market. So fantastic to hear all this great work that you're doing. I know that you've hit time. You need to go on and keep going with this fantastic work. So thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you. And please do share any insights on the artwork. I'd love to see some of that. We can share in the comments when we post online. I'm sure people will be keen to see that. So please do share.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll share some links with you.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Laura, and best wishes for your work.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.